Qutub Minar, as we all studied, is not an Islamic structure. It has bells and lotuses, which are very much reminiscent of a typical Hindu architecture. The original name of Qutub Minar is Vishnu Stambh. Please do like, share, subscribe and hit the bell icon. I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. YouTube has tons of such videos overloaded with strawman arguments and confirmation bias. No, Qutub Minar is not Vishnu Stambh. It is Qutub Minar. It is an Islamic structure. Let's try to understand what is the truth. I will keep this video very simple, short and straight because that's what it is. Let's first understand the semantics. What is the meaning of minar? Minar is actually a corrupted form of the original Arabic word manaratan, which means a beacon or a lighthouse. And this word manaratan further comes from another root word called nar. Nar in Arabic means fire. So from the Arabic word nar originates the Arabic word manaratan, which means a lighthouse on top of which the fire would be burning. Maybe that's the reason it's called manaratan. And from manaratan originates the Urdu word minar. So if a structure is called as minar, it essentially means that it is providing some sort of guidance or direction. It's a symbol of something. Kutluk Taimur Minar, Turkmenistan. Khosargord Minar, Iran. Minar of Zam, Afghanistan. Qutub Minar, India. These are some examples of the grand minars that were built during the Islamic reign in the northern part of India and also to the north of India. Interestingly, all these minars are built pretty much during the same period, 1000 AD to 1100 to 1200 AD, pretty much around that period. And they are very much identical in their architecture as well as the purpose. Essentially, these minars were built as a symbol of Islam. Now try and understand the meaning of minar. As we saw, it's a beacon. So a minar essentially represents something. In all these cases, it's pretty much tied up with Islam. It's a beacon of Islam. You can take it that way. And of all these minars, especially the minaret of Zam, which is in Afghanistan, built before Qutub Minar in the year 1194 AD in a place called Ghori, from where originated this monstrous invader Muhammad Ghori. And the Minar of Zam, in my opinion, is 10 times more beautiful than Qutub Minar. For its intricate art and architecture, it is just so very beautiful. There is a very deep connection between Minar of Zam and Qutub Minar. Multiple reasons. Built almost during the same time and also during the reign of the same king, Muhammad Ghori. Structurally, they are like identical twins. And the purpose is also to establish a beacon of Islam, both for its intricate art as well as the location in which it is present. The Minar of Zam is very beautiful, and as I said, it is more beautiful than the Qutub Minar itself. And also there is a very striking pattern across all these minars. You can find the Quranic verses on these minars almost pretty much in the center of the structure. And the reason I'm quoting this as an example is there are these strawman arguments coming in from these confirmation biased videos in YouTube saying that the Quranic verses on Qutub Minar were later added just to kind of Islamize the original Vishnu Stambh. I mean, that's all baseless, absolutely baseless. They're just trying to invent something for the sake of attention or try to push their propaganda, that's it. Just try to download and see the high definition pictures of the minars that I just quoted in the earlier part of this video. The pattern is exactly the same. Very intricate designs, and the verses of Quran were inscribed on these minars, which very much matches with the pattern of Qutub Minar as well. And here is the example that you're seeing for Minar of Zam. Now coming to the bells and lotuses theory, if you look at it more from an aesthetic point of view, all these minars are very intricately carved and they're beautifully decorated. Yeah, just because you can find a bell and lotus on a Qutub Minar doesn't make it Vishnu Stambh. On what basis this name Vishnu Stambh is invented and attributed to Qutub Minar in first place? Which scripture or which inscription, or at the very least, what is the basis for it? If you try to understand this from those conspirators, you just find nothing. They are all just anecdotes. Baseless, anecdotes. Calling Qutub Minar as Vishnu Stambh and inventing these kind of theories that it was actually a Hindu structure and then later Islamized by force by the invaders. It really amazes me how such kind of conspiracy theories and confirmation biases find their way to the people and public discourse so easily when the evidences otherwise are so very evident. Just a few yards away from the Qutub Minar lies Alai Minar, which was started by Alauddin Khalji, and it was also with the same intention as a symbol of Islam and as an extension to the Quwwatul Islam mosque, but it couldn't get completed. The base of Alai Minar, what you can see here in the picture, is very much reminiscent that of the Qutub Minar. If Qutub Minar is Vishnu Stambh, the first thing that the Islamic invaders would have done back then is to demolish it. Why would they construct or try to construct another minar or a stambh which exactly looks like Qutub Minar? Simple and straight facts like this expose the conspiracy of calling Qutub Minar as Vishnu Stambh. Another important and interesting fact in this context are the coast minars along the Grand Trunk Road that runs from Afghanistan, Pakistan, India up until Bangladesh. These coast minars were erected by the Islamic invaders back then as milestones throughout the important routes. And these are a couple of centuries old coast minars that you can find in the northern part of India. The conical structure very much reminiscent of the other minars that we saw. All these minars, these coast minars, were constructed during the Islamic rule of India. If you see the structural pattern, it's all elongated cones, be it in Minar of Zam, Qutub Minar, or these coast minars. And also reflecting on the Arabic word Manaratan, which we saw in the beginning of this video. It's a symbol, it's a beacon, a lighthouse. That's what the word meant. And here in this case, coast minars were milestones. They indicated as beacons the distance throughout the routes that they were installed. Coast minar, we know what's minar, but what is kos? Kos is again a corrupted form of the Sanskritam word krosa. It is a Sanskritam unit of measure of distance. 1 krosa in today's terms would be equal to 3 kilometers. But then why did Islamic invaders use the Sanskritam unit of measure of distance, krosa? That is because before the religious conquest began, Bharat, Afghanistan and the Middle East shared a very strong scientific exchange on mathematics, astronomy and a lot more. These societies very much lived in harmony back then, before the religious conquest actually began. So now let's try and understand what is Krosa. Avimuktam Mahakshetram Panchakrosa Parimitam, Skanda Mahapuranam. It says that the Varanasi, the place of Varanasi, has a perimeter of 5 krosas. That means the perimeter of the oldest city of Varanasi is 15 kilometers almost. So the word krosa is a Sanskritam word. And interestingly, the English word perimeter is also originated from the Sanskritam word parimitam. And even today, to denote a limit, we say parimiti. Parimiti, parimitam, perimeter, essentially all have one single origin from Sanskritam. Let's get back to coast minars. So using the same unit of measure, these coast minars were installed at a distance of almost 2.5 to 3 kilometers throughout the northern part of India. If you really have to call them, you should call Krosa Minar, because that's what it is. The milestones marking the distance of 1 krosa each throughout the route they were installed. So coming back, why did I quote coast minars? Coast minars stand another example as to how this minar culture or constructing these kinds of conical structures has been very much part of the Islamic architecture in Bharat. And so is Qutub Minar as well. So now coming to the actual reason what drove me to make this video on debunking this Qutub Minar Vishnu Stambh conspiracy. The Vishnu Stambh conspiracy essentially says that Qutub Minar is built for astronomical observations. It is initially a Hindu structure and later forcefully Islamized and renamed as Qutub Minar. So let us try and understand how much of it is truth. Is Vishnu Stambh, aka Qutub Minar, really an astronomical observatory? Let's find it out. A real astronomical observatory, as per Jyotisha Shastram, if it is built, looks like this. And this is called as a yantram. And the corrupted form of the name yantram is now called as jantar. And then we have the name Jantar Mantar. That's totally corrupted pronunciation. It's actually a yantram. Mishra Yantram. That's what it is. Now, each and every part of this structure has a scientific purpose that you can verify it for yourself if you could visit this place. Now, what part of Qutub Minar has a scientific significance or an astronomical significance? Zero. People invent theories that Qutub Minar has some 27 cones or edges and whatnot. I mean, practically speaking, all these are baseless theories that Qutub Minar as an astronomical observatory. Calling Qutub Minar as Vishnu Stambh does more damage to the scientific heritage of Bharat, and I'll tell you why. Today, if you go to any science student in Bharat and ask, do you believe in Jyotisha Shastram? 95% of them, 95 if I'm not wrong, 95% of them would give this answer saying that Jyotisha Shastram is a superstition. It's not their fault counting Jyotisha Shastram as superstition. Yes, there are superstitious elements as part of it, possibly. Whether planets impact people's lives on Earth or not, it's a matter of belief. For some it is superstition, for some not. But that broad brush painting of entire Jyotisha Shastram as superstition holds a mirror to our stupidity. Because one of the greatest contributions from Bharat to the world is mathematics. And the roots of mathematics completely originate from Jyotisha Shastram. If you just strike it down saying that Jyotisha Shastram is superstition, then we are essentially blinding ourselves from understanding the real scientific contributions that came from Bharat. Calculus, geometry, trigonometry, all three straight away have their roots from Jyotisha Shastra. There is no other civilization, to the best of my knowledge, that has mastered the art of time computation as much as Bharat did. And all these three, geometry, trigonometry and calculus, are the building blocks of time computation. Let me make my point much simpler. Let's take a simple example. Before that, put your religious and political biases aside, whether you are for or against it. Don't blindly support or oppose anything. Just be normal and try to read these two Sanskritam lines. Nilanjana samabhasam raviputra yamagrajam chaya martanda shambhutam tvam namami Shanaischaram. This is a very common prarthana slokam for Shanaishwara, the personification or the deity of the planet Saturn, as part of the Navagrahas or the 9 planets in Sanatana Dharma. Take the last word, Shanaischaram, and let's try and understand. If you open Sanskritam dictionary right away and check the meaning of it, it's 2 words, Shanai and Charam. Shanai means slowly, Charam means the one who moves. So essentially, Shanaischaram means the one who moves slowly. That is what the meaning of Shanaishwaram means. And it is not Sanishwara, it is Shanaishchara, the slow moving one. Now, if you take the orbital velocities of all the 9 planets, rather the Navagrahas if you take, I'm not talking about the scientific 9 planets including Uranus and Neptune, but rather the Navagrahas if you take, of those 9 or rather 7, Saturn is the one which has lowest orbital velocity of all. Now, how could the Rishi or the Muni who wrote this slokam, Tvam Namami Shanaischaram, understood that Saturn is the slowest of all? How could they figure out that Saturn has such a low orbital velocity? And I'm not just talking about the one word Shanaischaram. If you take the 7 days of a week, the Gregorian calendar that we are using today, it has no explanation, no scientific explanation as to why there are 7 days in a week and why the names of the days, Monday for Moon, Tuesday for Mars, and so on, were in the names of 7 planets and not 9 planets. Uranus and Neptune doesn't have the names of the day. It has only 7, and all these 7 are in the name of these planets. Why? The Gregorian calendar has no scientific explanation. I challenge you, you verify as much as you want. The 7-day week essentially originates from Jyotisha Shastram, where all the 7 days are attributed to the 7 planets of the Navagrahas, excluding Rahu and Ketu, which are the lunar nodes. And also these 7 planets are sorted out in the order of increasing orbital velocity, where Saturn has the lowest orbital velocity and Moon has the highest orbital velocity. And they are repeated with a 24-hour period. And the first planet of the every 24-hour period repetition, that day is named in the name of that planet. Throughout these computations, planetary positions, rate of change in them, and the time computations have been very much central to the Jyotisha Shastra. And to study the rate of change of planetary positions originated calculus, a field of mathematics which the whole world thinks it to be an invention from the West. But no one knows the contributions that came from the East. So much for a white man's burden. So this is the timeline of how calculus possibly traveled from Bharat to Europe. Each and every event in this timeline is undisputable. Come what may, everything is true to the letter. Now, without knowing any of these facts, if one paints with a broad brush saying that Jyotisha Shastram is a superstition, or if one says that Qutub Minar is actually Vishnu Stambh and it is used for astronomical calculations, both these extremes just show how blindly people just believe or make up things without actually questioning the reality. Tvam namami sanaischaram. I bow down to the slowest moving one. Now, whether you believe in it or not is a matter of individual choice and will not get there. For those who believe, it's a matter of devotion, and for those who don't, it's a matter of superstition. So it's a very personal thing, so leave it out. But the fact that calling Saturn as Sanaischaram is very much scientific, and if you don't question as to how people back then figured out that Saturn is the slowest moving one, what is the mathematics that has gone behind that? Why are the names of the day the way we are, calling it Saturday for Saturn, Sunday for Sun, Monday for Moon, Tuesday for Mars? What is the logic behind this? So these kinds of questioning attitude is what we need to develop, and this Vishnu Stambh theory, or rather a conspiracy, killed the credibility of Bharatiya Jyotisha Shastram and Ganita Shastram, the Indian mathematics and astronomy. Over the last couple of years, I spent researching and producing these documentary films on how mathematics thrived in ancient Bharat, especially originating from Jyotisha Shastram. All these documentaries, you can find it on Project SHIVOHAM channel on YouTube if you're interested. So here is the final fact that demolishes the Vishnu Stambh argument. Back in 1911, that's almost 110 years ago, the British Raj ruling India back then did an in-depth archaeological survey and published this book, The History of Qutub Minar and its Origins, to find out was it really a Hindu structure or an Islamic structure. This old book categorically establishes that it is an Islamic structure and not a Hindu structure. Of course, it stands on a graveyard of Hindu and Jain temples which were destroyed by the Islamic invaders. But that does not make Qutub Minar as Vishnu Stambh. And to uphold the truth, let's not call it as Vishnu Stambh. Honestly, I was not satisfied. I could not figure out where did this Vishnu Stambh theory come from. So I was reading through the history of Qutub Minar, then I came across this interesting fact. The iron pillar of Delhi, that was actually called as Garuda Stambh, dedicated to Sri Mahavishnu. This Garuda Stambham, which we call today as the Iron Pillar of Delhi, stands few yards away from the Qutub Minar, and slowly over the period of time, probably this Garuda Stambham gave rise to that conspiracy of calling Qutub Minar as Vishnu Stambh. Across Bharat, there are a couple of Garuda Stambhas which closely resemble the Iron Pillar of Delhi. Of course, the name of that Iron Pillar of Delhi is also Garuda Stambha. But here is an example of Garuda Stambham, which is also called as Buddhagupta Pillar in Madhya Pradesh. Atop the pillar stands the deity of Garuda holding a snake. And underneath the deity, you see a floral pattern, an inverted lotus kind of a pattern, that is called as Padma Pitham. For any deities in Sanatana Dharma, if it is made of stone or a metal, this Padma Pitham is mandatory. You will have a lotus flower below the deity. Now, this is how the Iron Pillar of Delhi would have looked like back in time. And now the idol on top of the pillar is missing, but still the Padma Pitham is still visible atop the Iron Pillar of Delhi. Here is another Garuda Stambham from Madhya Pradesh, built almost more than 2100 years ago. Again, same pattern as in Iron Pillar of Delhi, and here as well the idol is missing, the Garuda idol is missing, but still you can see the Padma Pitham visible atop the pillar. So that's about it. There is Qutub Minar, built by the Islamic invaders, and there is Garuda Stambham, dedicated to Bhagavan Sri Mahavishnu in the same compound of Qutub Minar. And in fact, there are many such Garuda Stambhas in India. And because of the presence of this Garuda Stambham, dedicated to Sri Mahavishnu, this conspiracy of calling Qutub Minar as Vishnu Stambham possibly originated. But that is absolutely baseless, and the truth is that Qutub Minar is an Islamic structure and Garuda Stambham is very much a Bharatiya structure. In fact, even more simple and straight fact is you can find Dvaja Stambhams which are very much reminiscent of these Garuda Stambhams in many temples in Bharat, but there is no single temple which has a Stambham which looks like Qutub Minar, and many other facts that I produced in this doc film. And the bottom line is, do not call Qutub Minar as Vishnu Stambham and encourage these kind of conspiracies that it was used for astronomical observations, because that will straight away hit the credibility and the rich scientific heritage that Bharat has in the field of Jyotisha Shastra. So that's all about the confused history of Qutub Minar. And as always, thanks for watching.